children or with other people. And I recognise how important that is. And Koreans taught me that. But I know that prayer isn't enough. Jesus didn't say, if you love me, pray. Now, if you love me, keep my commandments. And when you try and keep the commandments of Jesus, then you'll find much more to pray about. When you realise how amazing the commandments of God are, then you'll be crying out to God for them. When you realise how poor your heart is, and how poor your relationships are, and how poor the overflow of His love is, especially for lost people, then you're going to go cry out to God for prayer, because you need to be changed. So the first thing that's compromised, and maybe it's the first thing to go. Maybe it's the last thing we recognise, that we've lost our passion. Maybe you've never had passion. Maybe you've just had an orthodox faith. Maybe you've just grown up. It's all been like, ABC to you. I don't know how you get that in Korean, but I wish Daesop Yun was here, because then he'd be able to explain it all to you. He understands me and he understands you. But so you can just be doing the ABC. 2 + 2 is 4. 3 + 3 is 6. This is what we used to do in kindergarten. But God has built us to be filled with a passion, a pure and sincere devotion to Christ. And I want to know whether that is being compromised right now. I want to know whether the spirit of the city is wanting to crush your passion for Jesus, or wanting to stop you from having passion for Jesus. Here's the second thing. The second thing is, the second way that the spirit of the city invades the church is what I would call collective captivity. Collective captivity, that is a loss of hope, a loss of hope, a loss of purpose. The second church in Revelation found themselves in struggling and difficulty, and he said, I know you're poor, I know you're difficult, but you're rich, He said, if you're faithful to death, I'll give you the crown of life. If you're faithful to death, I will give you the crown of life. And don't try and tell me that the crown of life is something that you get when you go to heaven. Jesus had the crown of life. Jesus carried life from his Father. It was his crown. It was what identified him. If he wore a victor's crown, that crown was that he was the way, the truth, and the life. And he carried that with him. He didn't say, there's something really good going to happen to you when you die. He said, the Son of Man, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you could have life and life abundant. The spirit of the city is invading the church, and it's robbing us of our hope. Here we are in Australia with a little thing like COVID. It's just stopped a few things and so forth. But the fear that's in people, the apprehension, not just fear because, they might get the disease, but the fear of what's going to happen in the world. I tell you what's going to happen in the world. There's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. And the former things are going to pass away because all things are becoming new. And we have some of that now. We carry the foretaste of that. This belongs to us. We are these people. And one of the places where I saw this, I'm going to run out of time here and I'm not going to be able to finish it all. But I want you to be aware of what the spirit of the city is doing. It's coming into the church. Because it comes into your life through the TV screens, through the newspapers, through the community connections that you have, and through things that go on around about you. It comes in all those ways. And so now, in extreme forms, it's challenging marriage. It's challenging family. It's challenging the relationship between parents and children. It's challenging gender. In this nation, we could soon be put in jail for saying, in the beginning, God created male and female. We could be put in jail for that. I could be put in jail right now if I talk to somebody who was 13-year-old and wanted to change their gender. One of our crosslink pastors in Queensland was the teacher in a class of 9-year-old boys and girls. And he'd carried this was a rough school, and he did a great job there, especially with young boys. And so the headmaster of the school, the principal, didn't like this bloke because he was opposed to his Christian faith. And this is a young Filipino guy, really great bloke. So in between 2 years, our year finishes in December and starts again in end of January or early February. He got a note from the principal saying that there was a girl in the lower year that was coming into his year, I think it was year 4, and her mother and her had decided that she was going to become a boy. And his job, the job that he was being given, was to make sure this boy got accepted as a boy in the classroom. And so he said, "Oh, I just can't do that." And the teacher said, I know you're a Christian, I know you don't believe in all this sort of thing, but you're going to do it, otherwise you'll be sacked. And so he said, "No, I can't do it." And he said, "Well, you're going to be sacked." And he said, you can't force your Christian views onto this child." And he said, "I'm not forcing my Christian views onto anybody." He said, "I'm not prepared to stand there and tell 26 other boys and girls in this class that this is an amazing, wonderful thing. We all ought to celebrate this. We all ought to think this is wonderful." I just can't do that. In terms of duty of care to them, I cannot do this. And so for a whole year, he had to fight a case. Through letters and legals, and like the other bloke who prayed, and he had to fight that. Now this is what's going on. This is the enemy attacking. But these things, those kinds of things, are still reasonably rare. What is common in our situation is that we are being ground down and ground down and ground down, and we're becoming more and more self-centered, more and more self-deterministic, more and more trying to preserve ourselves and so forth. And here's a really funny thing. A number of years ago in this city, a survey was done to find out what the greatest virtues were, personhood virtues, that is, me and my life. What are the greatest virtues? It was a survey done of the 10 best-selling magazines in Australia. Magazines always know what people want. And so this survey was done, and the survey produced the three top ideas about what would bring health, wealth, satisfaction and well-being to a person about their life. The first one was self-gratification. That is, I am the most important person. In fact, we had large companies doing advertising on television saying, "This is the most important person in the world, you." So it's no wonder. If advertisers think it sells, then it's in people. The second thing was self-preservation, that is, keeping safe. Anything that took away some measure of risk so that I could be safe was considered to be some value for you as a person to fulfill your personal goals. And the third thing was self-determination. Self-gratification, self-preservation, and self-determination. And isn't it funny? Isn't it amazing that when Jesus talks about discipleship, when he talks about the culture of the kingdom of God, what does he say? He says, deny yourself. Not self-gratification, but setting aside what you think about yourself and accepting what God says about you. Not self-gratification, and not, instead of self-preservation, take up your cross. Take the risk. Look at the situation and take the risk on behalf of somebody else. And the third thing was follow me. Not self-determination, but Jesus' determination. Isn't this amazing that our culture has said the three very opposite things are the things that bring happiness and contentment in life? And Jesus says the exact opposite. Well, this is how the spirit of the city is invading the church. And so we need to rise up in these times. And whether you're in some part of the world where officers are going to come and arrest you. I've been talking to some people in Iran, and the husband was arrested, taken to jail. Nobody knows where he was. They wouldn't say, they wouldn't tell. He was being persecuted. He finally was let out. And when he was let out, in a matter of some months, his whole hair had turned white and he was just an emotional wreck. And so we don't have that in Australia. What we have is what comes to us through the newspapers, through the books, through the culture of the city invading the church. And we have to say no. We have to rise up. We have to speak and say, no, I'm going to celebrate the fact that God created male and female. I'm going to celebrate the fact that God causes a man to leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife. I'm going to celebrate the fact that I can lay down my life for my children and be there for them and be there for their children's children, so the blessing of God can be translated from generation to generation, from individual household to household. The spirit of the city is invading the church. I'll just give you the others now because I'm going to close down, but the third one is moral values. Morality. I don't have to talk about this. You can fill in your own. We have now respectable immorality in Australia. I don't know about you, but I know enough to know that you have these problems as well. Moral values now. We're adrift. We have no anchoring point, no set of values, no register. And Jesus, Father, Son and Holy Spirit, the nature of the Godhead is our prescribed morality, community, honesty, beauty. And the things about the character of God are beautiful. I just absolutely disdain the idea. I reject the idea that somehow God just wants to make things hard for us. And somehow the commands of God are onerous. They are not. We need to celebrate them. We need to celebrate them for the wisdom that they carry, for the love that they carry, because when God speaks to us about how we should relate to each other and how we should believe about ourselves, He's not talking about something punitive and harsh. He's talking about something that is life-giving and liberating. And it's not just that we need to be goody-goody two-shoes. I don't know how that translates in Korean, but goody-goody two-shoes is somebody who's just so good all the time, so good all the time. This is about life. This is about love. This is about compassion. This is about mercy. This is about holiness. This is about unity, not legalistic holiness, choosing a few values and then disregarding the rest. This is about being generous. This is about not being jealous. This is about honouring each other, blessing each other, serving each other. The spirit of the city is invading the church. The fourth one is compromised leadership. I can't say this in the way I want to, but leadership is being compromised.